Demand and popularity, but depending on how much demand there is, new production is entirely possible.
Season 3! I would love to see that.
神山さんと一番最初に仕事をさせていただいた仕事です。とても思い出深いので、自分としてはお話のしっかりしたアニメーションってそれまであまりやってこなかったんですけども、ゴースト・イン・ザ・シェルはとてもお話の内容がしっかりしてて、今までやってきた作品の中でもこういうお話をやれるアニメーションの絵として描けることは最高に自分としては続けていきたい仕事を与えてくれたと思っています。
Ghost in the Shell was the very first job that I worked with director Kamiyama, and I'm very fond of it myself because until then I've never really worked on an anime title that had a solid story. And Ghost in the Shell was different because it has a very solid story, and as an animator I was very happy working to work with such a title, and I'm very happy that it was such a long title that I got to work with director Kamiyama as well as the story.
もし続きがあるんであれば、神山さんと一緒にまた作らせてもらいたいと思います。ぜひお願いします。
So if there would be any continuation of standalone complex, I would be very honored if I could work with director Kamiyama again. Thank you.
僕はサードシーズンのプロデューサーに立候補しています。
Then I nominate myself to be the producer for the third season.
All right, and since all of you have worked on many different and widely different types of anime, I was wondering if you could tell us what were your favorite projects to work on, and why were they your favorite projects, or if there was some sort of experiences while working on them that made it really enjoyable or really unique?
皆さんそれぞれいろいろな種類の作品に携わってきたわけですけども、その中で一番好きだった作品というのは何でありますか。そしてそれが楽しかった思い出というのはどのようなものがあるのか教えていただけますか。
一番っていうのはすごく難しくてですね、どの作品も僕の中ではもう思い入れが深いので、なかなか一番というのは決められないんですけれども、そうですね、新作の東名電に関しては初めて原作から作品を作るというですね、また初めての経験をさせていただいて、これはこれですごく思い出深いですし、なんかどのキャラクターもね、自分の分身のような気がしていてですね、忘れがたい作品ですし、精霊の森人はそれまで高架機動隊でやってきた SF とは全く違うですね、アジアを舞台にしたハイファンタジーということで、これも僕にとっては初めての経験だったし、あとはその家族というのはですね、テーマにしている作品で、とてもね、なんていうのかな、僕もちょうどその子供がね、ある程度年齢になってきた時期だったりもしたので、自分の子供にも見てもらいたいなというような思いで作った作品ですし、高架機動隊は本当にメジャータイトルを初めて監督する機会をいただいた作品ということですね。それぞれやっぱり中で
Well, this is a tough question to answer because to say something that is some of the most in me, because they are all fun titles. Eden of the East was the very first title that I worked on. That was something that I wrote from scratch, and all the characters are like something that came out of myself. So they are very fond creations to myself. Now, the Seirei no Moribito is a title that was quite different from the world of a standalone complex. It's a fantasy world set in an Asiatic setting, and that's another first. And it's also based on a very family-oriented theme. And so this is something that I really wanted my own actual child, who was coming of age, to watch as well. So that's one element that makes Seirei no Moribito a very fun title for me. And Standalone Complex was the very first major title that I got to direct. That makes it a very fun title for me as well.
僕は金川監督とさせていただいたセカンド義務の草迷宮っていうお話があるんですけども、原作にはない全くオリジナルな話で、元子と久世っていうキャラクターが出てくるんですけど、それの少年少女の時に出会ったお話なんですけど、それをその絵を描かせてもらえたっていうことはとても嬉しかったですし、自分で結構フィルムを見て泣いたりしてとても嬉しかったです。
For me, and when I worked on second season with Mr. Kamiyama, I got to work on an episode called Kusameyuki. This is not based on a manga, it's an original episode, and it depicts Motoko and Kuze as kids, and I got to draw them for this episode, and that's something that made me very happy. I can still watch this episode and weep about the story.
東アイデンという作品は非常に面白い経過をたどりまして、第1話で日本にミサイルが落ちるんですけど、ちょうど第1話が放映する直前にですね、北朝鮮からミサイルが飛んでくるというニュースが流れまして、あとはその物語の主人公が全裸でホワイトハウスの前に登場するんですけど、日本の有名なアイドルグループの方が全裸で公園に飛び出すとですね、あとはエデンで総理大臣が退任した後に本物の総理大臣が退任してしまうとですね。そうですね。しかもアニメと同じセリフを語ったりしたんですよね。時代と並走して作品がこう続くという作品はなかなかないものですから、アメリカで東アイデンが放映される時にどこからミサイルが飛んでこないように祈るんです。
Well, Eden of the East was a very interesting show because in episode 1 of Eden of the East, missiles fly into Japan and Japan gets bombed. When this was aired, an existing country called North Korea was actually testing their missiles and they were threatening to fly them to Japan. And then, in episode 1, the main character of Eden of the East shows up in front of the American White House completely naked. Coincidentally, at the same time, a very popular member of a Japanese idol group got very drunk and was found nude in the park. And then, in Eden of the East, the fictional Japanese prime minister resigns. But around the same time, the real Japanese prime minister resigned, and even coincidentally, he resigned saying the very same words that the anime prime minister used to resign. So I'm wondering what might happen if there might be missiles flying into the States if when Eden of the East gets broadcast.
Oh, wow! Whew. talk about coincidence.
Okay, and now I'd like to ask if there are any projects you're planning on working on very soon that you can talk about now, or anything that you'd like to do in the future.